Good afternoon. My name is Emily Carlson, and I'm the Vice President of Technology for Divergent. I'd like to thank you for joining our webinar today. Today we're going to discuss making virtual meetings a part of your organization's culture. For those of us who have worked for Divergent for quite some time, we have been a fully virtual organization for just over 12 years. So for us, it's part of our normal routine to work in a virtual environment and to use collaboration and virtual tools to be able to make it feel like we're sitting side by side with our coworkers. We understand that with the push and the need to move to a more virtual environment over the course of the next few months, we want to be sure that we are helping to support as many people as possible with maybe some tips and tricks that we've learned through our daily life of being a remote organization. On the phone with me today, I do have my technology team leads. So Jose, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. I'm going to allow everybody to introduce themselves. So on the screen here, if we can go back one more slide, Jose. We have Jeff Baker, Jose Maldonado, and Mike Bright. So Jeff, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yes, I'm Jeff Baker. I've been with, or in the IT field for roughly 20 years. I've been with Divergent around 2, and I'm a Microsoft 365 certified expert.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jose Maldonado, Senior Microsoft Consultant with Divergent. I've been with them the same exact time as Jeff. Been in the IT field 15 plus years, specializing in SCCM, operating system deployment, Office 365, and all the cloud components attached to those Office 365 and Windows migrations.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Mike Bright. I'm a consultant with Divergent. I've got 15 years experience in IT, and my main expertise is healthcare IT, and also working with the team for Office 365 and M365 migrations.
Great. Thanks, you guys. So today we are actually going to just open up Teams and talk about how we use each part of the collaboration tool to help support our virtual meetings and the work that we do on a daily basis. So Jose, if you wouldn't mind, let's open up the tool and let's have a conversation. For those of you who are on the phone, there is a live Q&A section. We will happily answer questions as we go through the event today. If you have any questions, just feel free to submit them. We will be providing time at the end to answer any questions you may have. So Jose, would you mind opening up the screen?
Can everyone see my screen?
No, we can't.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
No.
So is that a resounding yes? Okay, yeah. So everyone, welcome to Microsoft Teams. I'm sure a lot of you have already been involved in it, heard about it, and I guess maybe if you're not familiar with it, you're wondering what the big what all the rave is about. So in my daily use of Teams, obviously just like Skype for Business, there's the chat feature where I can chat one-on-one with team members and even some external resources. It just depends on how your Teams is set up at the administration level, but communicating with other organizations that have teams is an option. So obviously we have the one-on-one chat. There are times where I may send a file to one particular individual, or to an entire group if I'm inside of a team. So again, private chat is something where we live day to day. I know I do, and but sometimes I have to include another resource. So let's just say if I uh, choose Trisha, for instance, and we're having a communication, but for some reason I need to bring uh, Jeff into the conversation, then I can select Jeff, click add, and then now Jeff is added to the chat. So it becomes a group chat at that point. So the interesting thing, you notice that the history between Trisha and I went away. So what happens is when you join new members to the chat, converting it from a private chat to a group chat, it does not show the history. Now, anything from that point forward, everyone included in that group chat will be able to see um, all the chat and all the content therein. So if for some reason, let's say, hey, we have to bring in Mike because he's in charge of this, that, and the other. So we'll go ahead and bring in Mike. So now it's a bit, and I'll type in here, hello guys, let's collaborate. So now we have 4 individuals inside of this group chat, right? And what we want to do, we've come together for a specific topic or issue. So what I may do at times, so I'm not confused by the navigation pane on the left where it may say Jeff Baker, but it also says Michael, then it says +2. But in a rush, I might just click on that particular chat and begin the chat thinking I'm only speaking to Jeff, right? So sometimes what I do is I'll go ahead and give the name of the chat, I'm sorry, or the reason for the group chat, a name, and then save it. So now I've renamed my group chat to just a list of members to an actual name, which is budget control. So now if you notice on the left, it's called budget control as well as at the top there. And this comes in very handy when we're operating outside of a team's workspace and it's just like a small joint effort, or we may even want to meet to discuss certain things. And that's even possible. We can meet right from this particular screen here. I can't click on that right this second because if I do, it will disconnect me from the webinar.
And
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, and Jose, you know, where I found this, and Mike and Jeff, you can jump in here as well, is that, you know, when you're in an office environment and not having to work virtually, it's very easy to just go stand next to somebody's desk, right? And to be able to spin up that conversation that allows you to have instant interactions and get to issue resolution in a quick way. So for us, I know that where we've used this is it's a way for us to, instead of sitting right side by side with each other, it's a way for us to instantaneously be able to respond to issues and concerns and be a very responsive team when we need support. So I don't know if you know, Mike or Jeff, you have anything that you wanted to add to that, but you know, I think that where we've seen this, especially over the past week and a half, where we have had to suspend our travel, is that instead of us being in a conference room, we're now just having the conversation via a workspace.
So let me ask this, and I really would like Mike or Jeff to chime in, but I would like to ask all of you, is it just me, or do we actually get faster responses from pinging someone within Teams?
So
but I think it's all of us. We all get faster response. And the one thing I'd like to say about, having that group chat is that you no longer have to do the email, and you always know, like Jose just put on here, budget control as the team chat. So anything that was discussed in there, all you have to do is always go back to your teams and then just look for budget control, because that was part of that team. So now you can go back and reference everything that you've talked about in there, or even if you've added documents in there also. So they will always be housed here at the budget control.
I think one of the things that's valuable to me as well, so I've got kind of a rule of thumb that I live by. If I can't solve the issue in 3 or 4 chats, I pick up the phone and call. So with that budget control or that searchable Teams chat, I can hit the phone icon on that chat, and I've got everybody that's included in that chat on a quick conference call. I don't have to spin up a calendar invite with a dial-in number and set up a lobby. We're instantly on the phone and we're collaborating real time.
And like so Jeff was saying, you don't have to email. So and that was kind of like has been my experience, where some people you email and they truly are busy. They get 50 emails by the time they get their coffee in the morning time, right? So going through those emails may take time, especially if they also have other tasks to complete. So I found that by pinging someone on Teams, let's say in a chat, you get a quicker response, even if that response is, hey, listen, why don't we just set something for 2 o'clock this afternoon? We'll schedule a 15-minute conversation or what have you, or send me the files that you already have and I'll preview. I love Teams a lot when it comes to peer review. I literally upload certain documents, and then the team can go in, whether individually or collectively at once, review whatever documents that we need to submit or save or present.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead, Emily, sorry.
As I say, Jose, it's from this screen to a time save, especially, in the time that we're in now, where we have to be super responsive. There's that calendar button at the bottom of that chat that helps us, quickly spin up a calendar invite to host. And the big thing with that is it brings in everybody from the conversation, so that there's no having to search for, names. It's a way that, again, in thinking about how we need to move to an immediate virtual environment. This is it's a time save. It's a way to drive an efficiency with spinning up meetings and being able to be responsive to situations.
Well, let's not forget the scheduling assistant that's right next to the details at the top there. And then now we can figure out what time slot would work, right? So it's almost like, not only do we have the same chat capability as we did with Skype for Business, right? But now we have the scheduling assistant from Office or from Outlook, kind of all wrapped into one, with our calendar. So it is pretty seamless.
So Jose, you talked about peer reviewing. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I just wanted to talk about also in the chat, in the group chat now, they have added that feature now to where it can pop out. So if you click on the pop out session, it will actually pop out of Teams now also. So it just makes it a little bit more like Skype used to be, where you could pop out the chats and it just wasn't part of just Teams itself. So it's the button's right next to the participants, where it just shows a little square with the arrow on it, and you'd click pop out, or it's part of that right there is you just click on that and you're out, you're going. It can be moved outside of the chat and everything, outside of Teams. Go ahead, Mike.
So to Jose's point for peer reviewing documents, a lot of us are in meetings and we're taking meeting minutes, and then we're having to go back and take that document separately and then work on something collectively and then compile that at the end of the activity. So with the ability to collaborate or co-author documents in Teams, that kind of goes away. So let's say a particular use case, there's a 0-day patch for Microsoft, and we've got a report where 3 or 4 facilities have devices that are unpatched. Real time in a meeting, we can actually go in and update the status of those devices and not have to have one person responsible for compiling that information from 6 or 7 emails from different folks. So it just makes your meetings that much more efficient.
Yeah, so I remember the days pre-Teams. Well, Teams had just been released, but we were working on a big project, and I think there were about maybe 5 of us on an email thread discussing a particular piece of a deliverable, and we were just going back and forth in the email. And I think the email thread grew to about maybe 49 or 50. And I remember Emily jumping in and said, "Listen, guys, let's just jump on a call," right? Because she saw how we just weren't accomplishing anything but just going back and forth with this asynchronous communication. With Teams, again, right? So we can chat back and forth. And then if it gets to the point where we have to just say, hey, let's just jump on a 5-10 minute call, we can just click that telephone button. It rings everybody out on their PCs, on their Mac, on their phone, on their tablets, wherever they are, right? And then we can quickly collaborate at the same time, viewing at the same moment whatever content needs to be viewed, or we can share screens within that same call.
Yeah, and I think right now too is that because we are having to move from our in-person sessions, which we typically, even as a remote organization, we do a lot of travel. With that having to subside, we need the ability to just be able to click into a meeting quickly. So I think now it's more important than ever that we can just ensure that we are able to hop on these quick action items. We've got notes that are housed within the same section, and it's something that we can go back and constantly reference as well. There's a question out there, Jose, and the question right now is asking if Outlook and Teams calendars integrate.
Okay, so that's a good question because, so yes, it does. If it didn't, I'd be in trouble. What I like about Teams is kind of houses or embodies or encapsulates, right, a lot of pieces of your Microsoft Office realm at work, right? And not only can we go in and easily open and preview different office documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you name it. But also when it comes to the calendar, I can create a calendar or meeting, calendar appointment or meeting in my Outlook client, the desktop client, and then maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds later after I save it, it pops up into my Teams calendar. So they're synced pretty much real time.
Great, thanks.
So I think Mike mentioned something about the meeting notes. So if I pop over here to the meeting and give me 1 second here. And this may not, so there's a meeting chat here, which means all the meeting participants can participate in this particular chat, and everything's visible to everyone. I'm not sure if there are meeting notes for this particular meeting, because I just remember this is a live meeting being broadcasted. During a normal meeting, you would have access to meeting notes, and those meeting notes are probably perfect for meeting minutes, and they get attached to the meeting once the meeting is over.
Yeah, so no more having to save a document, dump it in a network share, and then reference back to it or try to stumble around looking for it. You've got it right there, and you know exactly where to find it every time.
Well, you know what I find interesting, Mike, is that meeting notes can be edited, during the meeting by multiple attendees. So whereas one person could be taking notes, there could be a collaborative effort of note taking. If there's some sort of cadence set prior to, but again, more than one person can actually type into the meeting notes, which I found interesting, versus again relying on one person to basically transcribe all the important pieces of that meeting.
Yeah, I always loved when it's my turn to be that guy.
Yep. So we talked a little bit about collaborating with files, right? So I took a file and I stuck it in one of my channels here. So we created Divergent Dynamic Demo Teams workspace. So this is the team, right? And then obviously the channels are the topics. So usually you don't use general as for your channel. That is created by default, and you leave it without any use because Microsoft says, hey, just create an actual channel for whatever topic you're dealing with. So here you see I've created Office 365 project and solution development. I misplaced this file under the general channel. So excuse me for not following best practices today. So this particular document, I can click on the ellipsis here right next to it, and I can copy a link to it. So anyone in that team can view that particular document, but just in case I want to get their quick attention, I can copy the link to it, and then I can go to, let's say, one of the channels, and I can say, I can mention Jeff Baker, I can mention Mike Bright, and I can put on here, take a look at this. I copy the link and I send it out to them, right? So as Mike and Jeff receive that particular document and open it up, I'm going to want to go in there and open it up myself. And the cool thing is, depending on what you're doing or whatever the case may be, but if you prefer to edit it inside of Teams, that's fine. But if you want to edit it by downloading it to the desktop app, that's also an option. So I prefer the desktop app. I'll keep it in Teams for the demo, but I could be making changes here while Mike could be changing another area. As you can see, his cursor. And we don't have any collision of any sort. Now, the cool thing is if a certain team member is editing a certain line, if you try to click on that line, it may not allow you to edit that same line that's being edited currently. So that kind of prevents collisions. Up at the top, you can see Mike's icon here with his avatar, and that lets me know that he's also in the document. And then he'll have like a color-coded cursor that shows everyone exactly where he is in that particular document. But we can jump into this document and all make changes, edit, and review same time, real time, no phone calls, no emails going back and forth, no checking it out from SharePoint Online or checking it back in. So to me, it eases collaboration. What do you think, Mike?
Absolutely. Live and die by that feature for sure, especially when we're creating solution content. We did have a question about the limit, or is there a limit to private channels in a single team? And yes, there is. There can only be 30 private channels within a team, and each of those can have a maximum of 250 members.
Great, thanks, Mike. We also have another question, and that's, do meeting notes have to be shared amongst participants or can they be private?
So I guess whoever's in the meeting can see them. If there is a private channel where that's taking place, obviously they would be private to those that are not in that channel.
I guess maybe not invite certain folks to the meeting, I guess. No, so I think Teams, Microsoft talks a little bit about the use of private channels and things with the private label there. And I know that we would like to think that everything we do is private, and we should kind of shield it from other areas of the or other members of the organization. And that might be true in some cases, but I think that I think it's overused, or it's commonly used, and sometimes it probably should not. There are some other drawbacks to setting certain things within Teams to private. But as far as the meeting notes and everything that I know, it is available to the attendees, to all the attendees of that meeting.
Awesome, thanks. And I just wanted to point out too on the document collaboration, how it has it's been a reduction in my incoming email and the number of emails that I get with large attachments. So I don't know if Mike, if you and Jeff and Jose, you guys have noticed the same thing, but by us being able to house everything and also attach documents right to meeting invites and to chats, it's definitely reduced the number of incoming emails that I have, especially with large attachments.
Yeah, I would agree. And the beautiful thing about that is there's one version of the document and not multiple floating around to where you have to kind of do investigative work to figure out which is the most current one. That's been the most helpful part of it to me is just having that one living document.
Well, you know, Mike, writing and being involved with editing solutions documents, that was, you don't know how much time we've spent going through an email thread and then checking out all of the attachments and then seeing what initials are at the end of that particular attachments to make sure it was the last edit, you know, or initials plus version number. That's a lot of cross-checking and mathematics to do. And then, you know, when you're in a pinch, going through a huge email thread with 10 versions of the document is just, it's a bit much, right? So I like that feature where, again, it's almost like the SharePoint, but without checking out the document. Everyone can access it at once. And again, like you said, it's just one document.
Also, I want to add that it is, if you are collaborating, that you do edit it online or edit it in Teams, that it is. But now if you download it and do it yourself and you take it offline, then those updates will not show until you've actually saved it back up online or you've signed in to your account through whatever your organization is. The other thing I'll add to is that it is a culture change from always going to SharePoint. Always go to SharePoint, got to check it out, got to check it back in, you know, upload it, do whatever I need to do. It is a culture change that when you go to Teams, it really is a collaboration. You know, they always talked about SharePoint as the collaboration tool. Now they've taken it in Teams to collaboration on steroids. So it is real-time collaboration now.
No, that's definitely true. I appreciate that, Jeff. Teams, I think overall, there's so many pieces that are connected to Teams. So you have the features, right? But I kind of use Teams as a dashboard. So if I'm connected to, let's say, Zendesk or Salesforce or any number of apps or web apps that is set up in Teams, we can basically authenticate to that app, and then you can connect it to a certain team or team channel. And then when you go to that particular channel, you can see whatever the status is of that particular web app. So instead of me having to go out to Zendesk in the morning time, I can have a tab up top here that says, you know, unresolved tickets or you know, unassigned tickets. And then when I click on that tab, I get a quick glance at where we are, how many tickets, or what the status is without having to go out to that web tool.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Jose, just another good example is, so a lot of folks are using ServiceNow that can be integrated directly into Teams. But one of the things that that I've been able to do is, if you've got a CAN report in ServiceNow, let's say you want to know how many incidents are over 30, 60, 90 days, whatever that critical SLA threshold is for escalation to senior leadership, you can actually have that report emailed directly into the team channel. So that way, if that particular leader goes and checks that every morning and it's like an 8 a.m. report that runs, you can go in there and see what your open incidents are that are over 30 days for a particular location, however the ServiceNow report is set up. And you can actually tag that functional manager that's in charge of that team to have accountability and have somebody assigned to correcting that issue. So I think that's pretty cool. And then one of the other things, Emily mentioned email and the reduction email. A lot of folks before the culture was kind of using email, not as a communication tool, but a document repository. So you go back and you're searching, well, I know that email came from Jose. Let me go back and look back from last April when he attached that. So now you're actually using SharePoint to house the document. And again, you've got the most up-to-date current version of the document that you can go out and quickly access without having to go through a lot of processes to check it in, check it out, that sort of thing. So it really does bring all of the different pieces to our daily lives together into one functional interface or dashboard. And it's just saved me personally a lot of time during my workday, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's
also you can turn off Microsoft Teams in the evening if you want to turn off your notifications in the evening or on the weekends, so you're not being notified. That is also a nice feature in here that you can turn it off and get away from it for a little bit if that's what you need to do by just the notification settings.
no, that's always good. Sometimes we have to push our chair in and walk away, right? So to Mike's point, I remember the days of where the exchange mailboxes were growing so much in size that we started to have to place limits. This was obviously before Office 365 and the cloud pieces of Office, and we started setting limits at 375 megs for normal users. Directors would maybe get 500 megs, and then and it would go up from there, right? Where we would kind of cap it at like 750 to stay under that 1 gig file size limit, right? That Microsoft used to place on Exchange mailboxes before it could possibly become corrupt. And now, again, even though we have space where we can save it in our Outlook, right? Because if we have Office 365, we probably have gigs of space where we can save all these documents. But within Teams, it makes you think of something. So, if I'm on my computer, I used to be in the habit of downloading a whole bunch of different documents, and then sometimes I would organize them and put them in certain folders, delete others, so on and so forth. So when I'm uploading something into Teams, right, and I'm in a Teams workspace in a specific channel, I kind of think twice, and I ask myself, do I really need this document? So that I'm not just, using it as a OneDrive or, my C drive on my computer. And what I like about it, though, it organizes and has all the files you would need to collaborate, whether it's a project, a department, or some sort of initiative. But again, you can set up a file structure there, upload the files that you need, and then kind of at that point set it and forget it.
So I used to, I still do, but I used to create folder structure in my inbox for different projects I was working on. Have you found yourself creating the channel structure in your Teams similar to what you used to do in Outlook? Because I do find myself doing that.
Okay, so I do set up a file structure, but that's just so that I don't, on some of the bigger projects or collaboration efforts, we don't go into a certain channel, go into the files, and there are 100 files there, right? And then you have to search through it or use the search command. So what I like to do is just kind of create folders, say, okay, so this is for deliverables A, this folder is for deliverables B, right? Or this is phase 1 or phase 2, or this
Right,
is for
exactly.
SCCM or Office 365, right? And then if you go into Office 365, this is for training, this is for user communication, this is for, a solutions document. And that way it just keeps everything organized, and
Yep.
it's like anything. And you're walking through the house, you see a piece of paper on the floor that doesn't belong, you pick it up, you either put it where it does belong or toss it into the trash bin, and now you don't have to worry about it, right? But if we just throw files in there, next thing you know, there's a lot of cleaning up to do at the end. And don't forget, Mike, sometimes we actually invite external guests to the team's workspace. So now they can see all the files and content in there, and you kind of want to make it where it's comprehensible, digestible. You don't want them going in and not being able to find the data that they need to see.
It's like having a dinner party, but you haven't cleaned up the house yet.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jose, actually, you bring up a great point that, this isn't just for internal collaboration. Everything, especially around, meeting management and sharing meeting notes and that collaboration with external individuals. You can invite them into the tenant, and they have access to it, and those notes are shared instantaneously, and there's just it's a further extension at that point of how we can do our work with team members when we can't get to them personally.
Emily, do you mind if I just create a quick team just for the demo and include some external guests?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. So from the navigation pane at the bottom here, it says join or create team, and we can click on there, create team right here at the top in the middle. So we got the option of building it from scratch or creating one from an Office 365 group that is existing, right? So we'll build it from scratch, and then we'll make it public, because if you make it private, it's going to be pointed more towards the organization members and not the outside world. So we'll make it public, and then let's just give it any sort of name. All right, so it's creating the team. It's congratulating me for doing such a great job. So now I'm at the point that I can add members to this team, right? So I'll add Jeff, and I'll add Mike, I'll add Emily, and then I'll add an external user here. So if I click on, let's say Jeff, his personal email is already connected here, and then let's do Emily's email, personal email. So we click add. So now we have Emily and Jeff's personal emails are set up as guests. I cannot change that because they're not part of the organization. It's going to be set up as a guest access, and that's even for anyone that has an organizational email. So if there's an organization, Joe at xyz.com company, then they will also show up as guests because they're not a part of the organization. Now, for Emily, Mike's, and Jeff's Divergent accounts or company accounts, they show up by default as members, but I can change them to owners so that they can effectuate certain changes. Let's say I'm not around, or we all need that access, right? So I can change them to owners very easily there. And then once I click close, I'm done, right? Okay, so now not only is this an organizational teams, but also external facing or client facing, because I have two guests that are attached to this particular team. So when I create another channel, and let's just say let's just call it doc share, and I'll set the privacy to standard. I have the option to make it private, right? But we have to be mindful of whether or not to make the team the channel private based on whatever the needs are. So we'll create that standard, add it. So as long as the external guests have um, Teams on their device, they're able to share and collaborate, and even create channels within that Teams. As I said, there are certain restrictions, but again, they can see and access all of the information.
Hey, Jose.
Yep.
Can they, what if they just want to use the web client?
Okay, so they can use the web client, and we actually ran into that today. So in today's times, with everything that's going on currently, there are a lot of companies obviously having their employees work remote. So this particular client does not have Teams at their organization, but they've been using Teams to collaborate with Divergent. So this resource went home and basically logged onto a personal device, and then was able to access Teams via the browser to join the meeting that we had earlier this morning. Now, the browser version of Teams, or running Teams on the browser, has more restrictions because it's not the full application, but you still can collaborate. You can still share documents, edit documents, chat, view content, join meetings, and so on and so forth. Again, it's a bit more restrictive, but let's just say you did have to go somewhere, your laptop is lost, you got an important meeting, you get to your destination and you have to borrow a computer or use a loaner computer or a public computer. You can sign into a browser and sign into your Teams and attend the meeting as normal.
Yeah, because I think that's an important message right now, right? Because the fact that we can continue to further collaborate in a remote capacity just using that web client, as opposed to having to download onto, you know, the actual full version, is a big win for in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So in the past, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, there was a huge global company, and they were pushing forward to going BYOD, bring your own device, and they kind of went nonstop. There were, I think, a couple hiccups, that some risks with the project, but they were mitigated, and they just kind of wanted to push through, you know, whatever the number was. You know, basically, they wanted to retire these PCs. Everyone can bring in their own device. It was a network conversion initiative, and they were going full throttle. And I see a lot of companies going that way, especially with what is available out there today in terms of VDI, right? So using things, using the web browser version of Teams is probably, and you know, we downplay it because we have the client, right, at the company, but there are a lot of people that may not be in the have that available to them, and using the web browser is equally as good as using the client. Again, there are some restrictions, but there's probably 75% of what you could do with the desktop client can be done in the web client.
Yeah, and I think, aren't they also offering some free licensing models and some free usage of Teams for the next like 6 months in order to help move the needle in a quicker response time for the necessity of remote work?
Yes, so I actually, you know, being in the Microsoft realm, I study a lot. I read a lot up on Microsoft, and I'm updated almost daily about a lot of the happenings over there. And I think I saw some sort of advertisement. I don't know if it was television or somewhere online, but it was an actual commercial for Microsoft Teams. And I'm talking about like in the past week. And they did say that for the next 6 months that they would give free licensing for up to 6 months if you jumped into it now. So that was very, very interesting because prior to this week, I had not seen such commercial style advertisement by Microsoft.
Great. So we also have just another question that's come in, and it's how can I invite users from another organization to collaborate with me on Teams?
Okay, so that's a good question. All right, so if I go to my calendar and I want to spin up a meeting and I click on new meeting and I give it a name. So now I want to invite people to my meeting. So let's just say I want to put in my personal email here, and that represents someone externally. I can click on the email once it populates after typing it in, and then I can also include organizational contacts. And you have to remember, so all these vendors and consulting firms, they almost always have external members join their meetings, right? So you have to have the ability to do so. And to me, it's very seamless when it comes to Teams, creating meetings that are client facing or public facing, where you want people outside of your organization to join. Now, so there's also a another feature here where it says add channel. So I can actually pick up one of the channels that I created, say Docs Share, and now I can create that meeting inside of that channel. Although I also have external users connected to or invited to the meeting. Now, there's one thing that I found, and it's in terms of creating private channels. What I realized is when you have a private channel, you cannot include external guests that are not a part of the team. So that is a restriction. But as far as inviting external guests, you can do that all day, every day, and all of your attendees can be external.
Great. So I think the other advantage to having the channel set up is that you can broadcast or create a meeting invite right from that channel, which includes all of your external users as well. And one other question that's just popped in, can you include or attach a document to a Teams meeting?
I actually have not done that. Mike, have you done that?
Yeah, you can. I'm pretty sure you can do that. I've been in meetings this week where there's documentation attached.
Yes, so I do see that come across. I wasn't sure if it was in the meeting was created in Outlook or if it was created in Teams. And that's because when I create my meetings in Outlook, I just click on the Teams button and it attaches the link for the Teams meeting.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is if you go into the Teams channel and there's a particular document that you want, you can also copy and paste the link to that document in the meeting invite so they can click on it and access the document that way. That's another way to get around that as well.
This is true. Yep, just like I did there.
Yep. So there's the document. And then one thing I wanted to add too about the web access, not to jump back too far, but I think that also helps you, and we're talking about guest access, so the security is kind of important, but I think it allows you to keep data in your tenant. So hospital administrators are under the gun right now. They're working long hours and they're having to activate their emergency preparedness plans and that sort of thing. So you run out of time, it's 5 o'clock. We're probably all guilty of this. I think there's security measures in place to stop some of this now, but you've emailed yourself a document to your personal address so you can work on it from home. Well, if you're able to just jump on the web client and pick up where you left off, that data now is guaranteed to stay in your tenant. You're not having anything leave the organization. And I think that's another benefit of that as well. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, so I do think that there are great controls, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff or Mike, but I think there are really good controls around using Microsoft Teams on the admin portion, and that will allow for the protection of certain data. But without those controls, we could not control data loss or things of that nature, where people just are downloading whatever they want and making copies and so on and so forth. I mean, that still happens a lot, right? I mean, think about clients that or should I say an employee joins an organization and they have a whole bunch of documents that they've collected over in the past, right? But my question is, depending if they came from a sensitive data environment, and I'm not questioning any person in particular, but should we really have all of those documents that we brought over from another company? And we may look at it as just templates, right, to allow us to create more documents. But if that's the case, then sometimes maybe we might want to replace, some of the info on there. But again, just downloading, copying, having access to, or even downloading it to local device, personal devices, I think that's a risk. And Teams has a lot of controls set around that type of governance.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways you can do that with Teams. Azure Information Protection, so you can actually classify your documents. If this document attempts to leave the organization, action XYZ needs to take place, whether it's block that, notify an administrator, log the person doing it. There's a lot of different things or actions you can take when that event is triggered. DLP actually looks at the document for specific information and triggers, and then again a series of actions can take place after that trigger has happened. So for DLP, let's say something that we've deemed as patient information or social security or credit card or ACH routing numbers or something to that effect, you're able to actually parse that document, find those types of information or pieces of information, and then have an event trigger when it's detected. So those are two good ways to keep your data safe with Teams.
Also, you can when you take a picture through Teams, so if you're using your phone, it's either Android or the iOS, but if you take a picture through Teams, it is saved up into the cloud. It is not saved to the phone. So if you need to take a picture of a document with your signature on it to send it over to somebody else, instead of scanning it, you just take a picture of it through Teams, and it's saved up into the cloud through Microsoft Security.
But I think that's through also user education, right? Because you have a lot of users that, unless they're properly trained, probably would take their phone and take a picture using the phone's camera, right? And saves to their iCloud or to their Google Android gallery, and not take the picture via Teams, where it is saved on the cloud.
Yeah, and guys, I just want to give us a time check. We're down to only 4 minutes remaining in our time together today. So, I guess does anybody have anything they want to add as far as how using the collaboration tool has helped in one way or another over the course of the past few months? And then also, if there's any other questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section of the web client.
Yeah, Emily, you mentioned the web client before. I can't tell you how many times that saved me. So I've gone and visited family and didn't bring a device and had to jump on, or my wife's in healthcare and she's had to jump on and didn't have the device with us. For whatever reason, you jump on, log in, and you're able to pick up where you left off, no matter what device you're on. So that's just such a huge benefit. I know we want to respect work-life balance, but there's certain times where you've got to jump on and get something done in off hours. So that's been a huge benefit to me.
Jeff or Jose?
Actually, this is more on a personal note, but I needed some information for my regarding my personal benefits when I was enrolling my son into a program, and I was able to ping from my phone one of the team resources that was able to get me the information rather quickly, and I actually was able to ask for a little bit more information that I needed, but it was, I mean, literally within a minute or less, I got a response. So that is, it's like information when you need it, collaboration, at your fingertips, on demand, if you will.
Yeah. Jeff? And I would say for me, being able to have phone calls and be able to hold a meeting just with the tap on my phone, of being able to connect with the three of you on a daily basis has saved a lot of time from creating meetings or trying to set up a conference call, where we can truly just have that instantaneous communication to make sure that we're all on the same page and making sure that we're really getting the volume of work completed that we need to. So I would think, for me personally.
And I'm sorry, I had a great point. I was muted and I didn't realize it. But just from being out in the evening and somebody sends you a document and say, hey, can you proofread this? You can edit everything from your phone also. That's what's really been helpful.
Great. Awesome.
I guess we need new controls around that mute button, huh, Emily?
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for having the discussion with me today and talking about how we're using a collaboration tool to help drive efficient communication internally. I want to thank everybody who was able to join us today, and to our great marketing department for being able to put together those cool avatars for us. We appreciate the support, and we are happy to answer any other questions. And guys, thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.